Our guest today is a fabulous coach, but a coach in a very unique way. Stay tuned for Working Real Productions' Buddy Brennan. Buddy Brennan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Chris. It's always good to see you.
Now, in the intro, I said that you were a coach, but I never really alluded to what type of coach. Most people will think of sports or maybe, a tutor. So Working Real Productions, Buddy Brennan, the coach. Walk me through that.
So, yeah, you're right. I absolutely am a very different type. A lot of people get into lifestyle coaching or decluttering coaching or helping you through almost like a mentoring process for your business or your personal life. That's not what we do. We help people specifically with either their acting or their presentations and their communication skills. We really don't touch on the personal side of your life. We work on making you a better presenter, better actor, better auditioner.
So walk me through that a little bit. You say better presenter. Most people, they think of maybe a CEO coming out on stage and talking to their employees and their team. Is that kind of what you mean by you would talk to the corporate world about how to be an engaging presenter?
That's exactly the kind of things we would do with business people. Business people have to give a lot of presentations, and sometimes they're really good at communication, but they're not necessarily great at presenting. So we will help them sometimes with the language of what they're saying so that they know what the audience is actually hearing. And sometimes we're working on their actual skills, their verbal skills, their body language, all the things that go into communicating properly. We even will touch base, if they're on camera, with making sure that their colors are not the very same as the background. What they can wear, what they can't wear, those kind of things. And that's really for business people who are very, very smart in their field. They might be a lawyer or a financial planner or something like that. And they're very smart in the field, but they haven't learned how to communicate their ideas effectively. And we help with that.
So when we talk about, I guess that's more of a leadership thing, is that you have a CEO, someone in management giving a presentation and they're in a position of leadership. Now, do you help write and craft what it is that they should be saying or the message they're delivering? Or is it really just about presence on camera and engaging with the crowd?
Yeah, and that really comes out. That's a very great question. Thank you. That really comes down to what the issue is that we're addressing with each individual. With some that we deal with, their language, the way they're explaining things can often be convoluted or a little confusing to the listener. So we help to create their language to be a little bit more succinct, but also to be more effective. So let me give you an example. I had one young man who was a fantastic young guy, really smart, multiple degrees, but he never used any emotional words. So it was very difficult for people to relate to him, to like him, to understand him, because at the end of the day, people make decisions emotionally more than they do intellectually. So does that answer your question? Is that the kind of thing you're asking?
Yeah, actually, you brought up a new question for me. You're saying emotional words and having people connect. Typically you think of a CEO coming down saying, do this, that's your paycheck, thanks so much. What do you mean? What's an example of an emotional word or an emotional sentence that helps people connect?
Well, some of the concepts that people are dealing with. Let me give you an example of an accountant. An accountant will sometimes think that the numbers are good enough. And if these numbers make sense, then what they're saying makes sense. But really, if they want people to buy into what they're doing, if they want people to come with them on that journey, if they want people to say, yes, I'm going to take part in this, then they have to appeal to how people feel about it. So if the accountant even says something as simple as, I'm very excited about this, that's an emotional word that tells people there's an emotional connection to it. Or the opposite could be true. No, this is something I'm very afraid of. Well, great. Now they know he's pulling away from that. But just to say this is right, this is wrong, won't engage your audience enough. Right? Does that make sense for you, Chris?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. I'm happy you shared that with us. when you have that example of you get up there saying, hey guys, I'm really afraid of this next quarter, or, I'm really excited about what this team can do. It helps to really put that into the team. That's really cool. And how long has Working Real Productions been doing coaching like that for the CEOs and the business side of things?
Well, that's kind of a difficult question to answer. We have been very, very active throughout the pandemic. But prior to the pandemic, people would call to say, my friend told me that you coach actors. Can you help me with a speech? Or can you help me with a eulogy? Or can you help me with, things like that? And we've never had to advertise. All of our business comes from word of mouth. People say, I know this guy, Buddy, can help you, call him. And that's how it's built. So I started as a actor and a director many, 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 many years ago, a few decades ago. And as a director, people would reach out to say, well, listen, if he can communicate and get that from the actor, maybe he can help my friend who's a business person. So we did it informally for a long time. But at the beginning of the pandemic, there was an overwhelming amount of people who needed help addressing the camera, using the camera to communicate. And so we started really getting busy with that then.
That's awesome. Kind of snowed into something unexpected. Yeah. I want to dive into the acting and the directing side of you for sure. But when we talk about the CEOs, and as you said, these guys are very educated, and these guys, gals, everyone is very educated. They're very smart people, but they have a hard time relaying that to their team. In your experience, in your opinion, what's been the most light bulb moment that you've worked with somebody and they've said, oh, now I get it? Was it addressing like a team of 500 people? Was it addressing maybe their family as opposed to a company?
That's an excellent question. And it's a little difficult to answer because I think there are different moments with different people. So when I go back to the young executive that I was dealing with, and again, really a nice person when you met him, he was almost afraid not to be intellectual in his process. So for him, the light bulb moment was I got him to tell me a story, and I said, okay, now that you've told me that story, how did you feel about it? He goes, well, I liked it. It was fun. And he was telling me about a vacation. I said, at no point did you tell me anything that you felt through the story. And he sat and he looked at me for a minute or two, and I said, it's never going to be about the facts. It's always going to be about the subtext. How did you feel? How did you interpret that moment? And for him, that was a great moment. But a lot of people who get up to speak lose track of the fact that it is about the audience. So they end up using a lot of I statements like, well, I thought of this, and I'm really happy to do this, and I would like to do this. And we joke, I say, well, they're suffering from eye disease. They use the word I too much. But really, what I'm trying to say is that communication has always got to be about the other actor. It's always got to be about the audience or the person you're talking with, as opposed to themselves. And some of them, once you point that out to them, they go, oh, of course. The reason people aren't responding is because it's all about me, not about them. And that's a tough habit to break, but it's a great thing to learn.
At one point, you were an actor and a director. What made you get that acting bug? Why did you decide that a career in acting up until the point of founding Working Real Productions was for you? How did you know?
When I was a young man on stage, I remember, and I was a child, doing community theater in the north, up in Sault Ste. Marie. And I walked on stage and I heard the audience laugh. And I thought, wow, they're laughing because of what I just did. And to think that I could have that effect on people was the start of the bug. But all my life, I tried other things. I tried other jobs. I was never happy. But when I walked into a theater or a movie set, I knew I belonged there. It was home for me. And that was really the changing point for me. And I've acted essentially on stage thousands of times. I did dozens and dozens and dozens of commercials as an actor. But eventually that meant that I wanted to learn more. So I started to direct. And I remember the first show that I directed, the actors, nobody knew it was the first show I had ever directed. And we would be talking about theater. So they thought all my, stories and things I used to relate were directing stories, not realizing I was an actor, until they saw the program and it said, Buddy Brennan makes his directorial debut. And but that for me, when they got a standing ovation, and I thought, wow, I helped them do that. That was a life-changing moment for me. Just knowing that my direction, what I was offering them, brought out the best in them, brought out their possible, the things that they didn't know they could do. And they came together as a team. And that's an emotional moment. It was really, really life-changing.
Now, you actually said when you get out there and you hear them laugh, that was this moment for you.
Yeah.
There's a rumor, and maybe you can help address this. When you go to Hollywood and when you go to the stage, that the people are counting laughs. Is that true?
Yeah, they do. They measure them. Your excess. For example, Yuck Yucks wants a laugh every so many seconds. And if you're telling a story for too long and you're not getting a laugh, you're kind of missing the point of why that audience is there. And right. That's why you'll listen in sitcoms, they put in a fake laugh track to ignite the laughter in you at home. People don't like laughing alone, but if they hear the people in the studio laughing, then they'll feel free to laugh out loud at home. But yeah, they measure it. They count it.
Now, in your experience, and you've been acting on stage and off stage for a while, has there ever been an opportunity or what's a moment you can share with us where laughter or counting laughs was such a good part for you?
Yes, I think I know where you're going with the story. So in my acting career, I was very, very, very fortunate to have worked with some of the greatest actors of all time. I worked with Michael Richards, who played Kramer on Seinfeld. I worked with Andy Dick when he was directing, actually. I worked with Buddy Brennan, and in Canada, I worked with Jack Duffy and all kinds of names. But one of them, which was a fantastic name for me, and a lot of your younger viewers won't know this name, but I worked with Don Knotts at Stage West for, I think, about 5 months. We did 8 shows a week together for approximately 5 months. And he was overly kind to me. And I think I know the story you want me to tell, is that one day it was a matinee in the afternoon, and I'm saying, Don is a very impressive man, and he is extremely experienced. And this time he was, probably around 70 years old. So he had forgotten more than I'll ever know. And I'm standing backstage, and he walks off, and he stands beside me, and he says, I always got a laugh on that line in Kansas City. I don't get a laugh here. I don't know why. And I'm standing there trying to be as polite as I can. I don't react. He said, why don't I get a laugh on that line? And I thought, he's asking me. So I said, I'm sorry, Don, are you asking me why you're not getting that laugh? And he says, yeah, what do you think? Why isn't it funny here? And I said, well, I have a theory, Don, but you're Don Knotts and I'm Buddy Brennan. So, and he goes, no, please tell me. Because he was a really humble, kind man. He was, all the good things you expect about him, he was better. So I gave him a little thing. I said, your voice is a little soft now, so break it up into 2 sentences and you'll get 2 laughs. So we talked about it for a few minutes, and he said, oh, thanks, and he gave it some thought. And so we did the matinee, and in the evening show, he tried breaking that line up, and he got both laughs. And so he came off stage, and he took me aside just before, just as the intermission was starting. He goes, by the way, buddy, I took your tip, and I got 2 laughs. He said, thank you very much. That was such a nice tip, and he was very kind in his praise. So I standing there, I thought, So I said, well, Don, if you enjoyed it that much, then maybe you won't mind me doing this. And just loud enough for everybody else to hear, I said, anytime you need help with comedy, Knotts, you come to Buddy Brennan. And I went down to the dressing room and waited. But clearly, people were asking, well, I said, well, Don needed a little help being funny, that's all, And a few minutes later, the stage manager and Don are at the dressing room door. Not good. So there's a knock. They open the door, and the stage manager, was a tough man. He looks over, he says, we need to talk. I said, out there? Because I know I'm getting fired. So I said, out there or in here? He said, no, you did in front of everybody, so will we. And Don comes by with a very serious face, and he sits on a chair beside me, and he opens the script, and he says, can you help me with this line too, buddy? Of course, my eyes are going big, and I'm scared. I'm waiting for it. And then he looks at me and goes, I got you, didn't I? So, yeah, he was a kind, funny, gentle man. He taught me so much. He went out of his way to be nice to me. And in that same show was Jack Duffy, a Canadian legend, and I at the time. And the two of them took me under their wing and taught me a lot.
So in your experience, when you go from acting in front of the camera, acting on stage, and now you're helping people kind of build their own career and their own path, what's that like for you? You used to be in front of the camera, now you're behind it helping people. Do you ever have that thirst of, geez, I want to get back in front of it again? Or are you really excited and happy to be showing the new generation how to do some stuff?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's both. If I didn't really want to get back out there and do some of it myself, then I probably wouldn't be as good at helping the actor draw the performance out of them. So that hunger is still inside of me. There's no doubt about it. But I got to tell you, Chris, and when one of our people lands a gig, there's other coaches in the office here, but when one of our coaches lands a gig, we all celebrate. We truly are. We feel the excitement, maybe sometimes more so than the actor who landed the gig. They're off to an audition, and we don't know. We've done our best to help them, and now they'll call us up and say, "Hey, I got booked on this job." Well, we yell and hoot and holler around here, going fantastic, because that celebration of doing something for somebody else, that's where true happiness, I think, comes from. And that, when I go on stage, it's because I know I can make the audience feel something. But if I can do it just with one person who then goes out and does it for more, there's great joy in that. It's really, really, really nice, happy feeling to it.
So if you can recall, how many times do you think you've been on stage?
Oh, thousands. Yeah, thousands. I was also the artistic director of several theaters in Ontario, so that facilitated opportunities to get on stage too. I was very, very, very lucky. People were kind to me even when they shouldn't have been. They cast me, and it was fantastic. Fantastic. I was very lucky. I love the stage. I think the stage is very, very, very important. And I think it's a great foundation for all actors. I think every single actor in the world should spend a little bit of time on stage, because that's where you hone your craft. Yeah, but I was lucky. People were kind to me. Even with commercials, the casting directors in Toronto were very good to me. I think it's because I loved it.
Our guest today, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, was a comedy acting coach for Don Knotts back in the day.
Oh, please don't say that. Now I'm going to have his agent calling me.
Funny, when we talk about coaching an actor, a lot of it is, think one thing, do another, and say something completely different. There's three thoughts running through an actor's mind. Why is that?
Well, okay, so we work on all the different types of acting approaches, right? Method, motivation, classic technique, all of them. Yeah, improv, everything. So all of them really boil down to making the moment as truthful as possible. Making the moment as truthful as possible. So you have to find the truth. Well, in truth, we all live like that, right? If you're driving your car, you're not talking and thinking about, I'm putting my hand over my hand and I'm going to do this and I'm shifting. You're not doing that. You're driving the car, but you're talking to, or you're singing with Elton John on the radio, right? But you're thinking about, when you get to work, you got to do this, you got to do that, now, of course, we should all think about our driving. I'm not promoting that. But in reality, we do multiple things all at the same time. If you're pouring yourself a cup of coffee, you're probably thinking about what you got to do when you get back to your desk. That's kind of the thing. So we have to tell actors to have an inner monologue all the time. So that inner monologue is what they're thinking, their character is thinking. And then they will do what the director wants them to do, the business of the moment. But they'll say what the writer gave them to say.
Now, when we look at those internal monologues, and it's neat that you break it down, a lot of the times people will hear, you're enough. Not necessarily your character, but you're enough to play this character. Is that kind of what you mean when you have these, you're driving a car, but you're thinking about where you're going to park, or you're pouring your coffee and you're waiting for what's going to happen at the desk, and all these emotions going through? When we're playing a part as actors, we're the actor, we're that character. But a lot of time we hear that, you're enough. So is it that we're being too big with our performances when we hear those comments? Is it that we're not being big enough? Or can you comment on that?
Well, between me and you, and please don't tell anybody I said this, that's not really a good direction from a director. But probably what they're trying to say is that if you make it as conversational as possible, we cast you in this role because of what we saw in you as well. So every character has an element of the actor who plays the role. So we don't want actors to start to pretend to be something outside of their comfort zone because it's no longer real. It's no longer truthful. So when I was a very young man, I was doing a stage play and it wasn't going well for me. And the director one day stopped giving me notes. And I said, Harry, why don't you have any notes for me? And he said, no, buddy. He goes, when you show up to work, you'll get it. But I don't know what I have to do to get you there anymore. And I was so angry, and I complained to the other cast, and I said, I'm the first guy to work. I was the first guy off book. I'm the last guy to leave rehearsals every day. Why is he, how can he say that to me? And he said, the cast all agreed with him, said, yeah, buddy, he's right. You haven't shown up yet. And so the next day during rehearsal, instead of doing what I thought I was supposed to do, and then, I'm just going to goof off. And, I winked at all the girls in the cast and nudged anybody I could try to make laugh without getting caught. I tried it. And when I was finished that rehearsal, the entire cast and crew gave me a private standing ovation. And Harry came down and said, finally, Buddy Brennan showed up. He goes, we didn't want you to be some caricature of a Baptist preacher. We wanted Buddy Brennan, who happens to be a Baptist preacher in this. And that's, was a learning exercise. And I think that's what your directors are telling you. Just bring you to the role.
That's a really neat comment that you made. Although you're doing the audition and you're reading the script and the information they gave you, but they're not just looking at your character performance. They're looking at you as a person as well. Did I understand that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Let's say you audition for something and it comes down to you and another actor and you're both really good actors. Well, at the end of the day, casting directors will deny this, but there is human nature that says that they are going to decide how they feel about you regardless. The 15 seconds of a first impression. When you walk in the room, are you the person they want to spend their day with? Are you a nice person? Are you behaving like they expected that character to behave? And that's, has to influence their decisions. So the one that's more likable is going to get the part that day. So I think that's what you're asking. I hope I'm answering the question.
No, of course, yeah. So where can people learn more about Working Reel Productions?
Well, they can always send an email to crew, CREW, at workingreel, REEL.com, crew at workingreel.com, and we'll get back to them and phone them. Or they could phone our office at 519-342 FILM, FILM, 342-3456.
Now, is there anything that Working Reel Production is working on in the background that you can kind of give us a glimpse in? Are you taking on more actors for opportunities? Are you taking on more corporate guys? Are you making your own movies? What is Working Reel Productions up today?
So we're very lucky that we get to pick and choose who we want to work with. And I have a couple of corporations that have asked us to come and assess whether or not we want to work with them. We do turn down probably more actors now than we take on, but we've expanded and we've taken on another coach quite recently who's just going to focus on actors. And we have another one that only focuses on children actors. So we are growing as we go, but our focus is always going to be the same. Our job is to make the actor better, to make the performer better. And so we really try to support that. And we take them on an annual basis, and then we don't limit how many times we see them. So if somebody has an audition 3 times that week, we're going to see them 3 times that week. We're going to do everything we possibly can to make them feel supported. But we're also, I have a book that I have a literary agent in Los Angeles looking at that is aimed at actors, and it's going to talk quite a bit about the things we just talked about today. And it looks like that's probably going to be published soon. And we also have a film script that we've submitted that has the possibility of being accepted or at least developed.
That's awesome. So you got a book that's coming out, hopefully, knock on wood, a movie that you're working on as well. And of course, give them a call and Google Working Reel Productions to see if you can get a spot. That's awesome. I have time for one last question for you, buddy. What makes Buddy Brennan smile?
Yeah, that's a good question. I spent my life as an actor. I'm an emotional guy, right? I cry when they squeeze the Charmin too tight on TV. It's kind of who I am. But my default emotion is I'm a pretty happy guy. So, if you want to know what makes me feel great, it's when that actor calls and said, "Buddy, I booked this gig," and they've been struggling with it for so long, and all of a sudden their careers are about to take off. That makes me really happy. I had a business person called me and was in tears, saying that it was the first time that she had given a presentation where the audience cried while she was talking. I know now that what we did mattered, and that makes me happy.